It's not related to an unjust transaction. It's only related to unjust transaction because it's. Let me rephrase it. A transaction, a predetermined rate on a transaction, on a deferred transaction, would be riba because this kind of a transaction would be unjust.
This kind of a transaction is what the Quran considers unjust. You see, let me give you a little more background. The basic principle of economic prohibitions in the Quran is that one should not take away anybody's money through unjust means. Whether this unjust means implies stealing, whether it is any money on which I do not have a right to take away from you. It can be only through selling something, through rather I would rephrase again. It should not be through any means that are considered to be unjustified. I should not defraud you of your money. I should not steal your money. I should not take your money because I am in a position to take your money. Riba is a transaction in which the person takes away another person's money only because he is in a position to take that money away.
By lending it to him. And then taking it back.
And then demanding more than what he had given.
So how do we adjust inflation in there?
Inflation basically, if I'm not mistaken, again that is not my domain, it basically relates to the paper currency. That again is beyond the scope of my discussion, how it relates to that. But when we lend a particular paper currency, a particular amount of currency, I think it would only be justified that we ask that the whole 100% value of that currency that we lent today should be returned. So, for instance, for a weaker currency like our own currency, or for that matter any other currency, it would not be incorrect to relate it to any other value item through which we can determine the value of the real value of that currency today, and then ask for the return of that real value in the future date. For instance, we can say that 100,000 rupees today are basically 5 ounces of gold. In that case, it would not be wrong to ask for the return of 5 ounces of gold when the borrower returns the money, even if that means 3 times the money in paper currency that is being borrowed today. That would not fall under the ambit of riba, because now it is being made contingent upon the devaluation of the money. The increment that we are asking is not the increment in value. When I give this opinion, many people would say that most of the years that we've seen in the recent past, the inflation, the real inflation in our country has exceeded the interest rates that we have in the country. It does not matter. Had we made the value adjustment contingent upon what the inflation was during the past year, it would not have been riba, even if it had been more than the interest that we are charging or giving at this time. Just because it was predetermined and it was given at the time of the loan and not made contingent upon the results of the economy, the inflationary results of the economy, it falls under the ambit of riba. So I'm not suggesting that a non-riba transaction would be in the benefit of the debtor always. Neither is the Quran suggesting that. What the Quran is suggesting is that the transaction should be justified. It should be based on just grounds.
In the example that you just gave, what you were technically saying, as I understood it, you were technically saying was that the person was not lending 100,000 rupees, he was lending X amount of silver or gold.
Exactly.
So you're saying is okay. Can we technically, since it was done technically in the sense that he was again lending 100,000, not the gold. I mean, he could have bought that and then given it to him. But can we do it like midway, in the sense that we know that we have got all the statistics. We know that today, let's say gold is 50,000 rupees per 10 grams, 10 grams. Let's say we say that I am lending you 50,000 rupees, and for let's say 5 years. After 2 years, I say, okay, since at that time gold was the same price, and I lent you, technically I lent you 10 grams of gold So after 5 years, you lend me, you give me back 10 grams of gold because I know that gold is going to go up.
No, I think this, if anything is to be related for the purpose of inflationary adjustments, value adjustments for the any amount lent in a deferred transaction, then this should be it should be pre-decided. Otherwise, what will happen is that suppose I'm a person who's being lent 100,000 rupees, and it would be in my interest to sort of relate this amount with something that has not increased in value so much, but it would be in the borrower's interest, in the lender's interest, that it should be, for instance, it should be related to something that has really blown the roof away. So I think it should be pre-decided. There's no harm in deciding that we will make a basket of commodities, make a basket index, for instance, of necessities, and then relate the loan to that. There is no harm in saying that we will, for instance, do it with the dollar, the US dollar. That's an international currency. There's no harm, and if the value decreases, for instance, after 5 years, if we find out that gold has gone down, as unlikely as it might seem, but if we find out, then the amount that would be returned would be less than the 100,000 that was initially returned. So I mean, it can go both ways. It is not anybody's benefit that the Quran is looking at. This would be wrong to assume. It is not the borrower's benefit. It is only justice that the Quran is looking at. The Quran says that you have a right to be returned the whole amount that you had lent, the whole value of the amount that you had lent. And the same way, the borrower has the right to return only that value that he had borrowed. This is what the Quranic principle would be. Unless it is a business transaction in which you are participating, in which you are saying that if you get a profit, on the contingency that you earn a profit, you should give me a particular percentage of that profit because of my participation as a capitalist. So in that case, it would not be completely unjustified to ask for any returns. What the mechanism might be would completely depend on the two persons making that contract.
So what you're saying is that there are two things about commercially viable transaction. One is that I've lent it on the basis of profit, right? And the other one is that I do not demand anything extra from the person other than what has been agreed.
Other than what has been lent. Other than what has been lent, you have the right to ask for the 100% value to be returned, or if it is made contingent upon anything that is to happen in the future, any results of the operations, any devaluation of money, anything. If it is contingent, then it might, that can be another debate whether that is right or wrong. But obviously that would not be riba.
But for a commercial transaction, when you're lending to a person for a certain business, because I would like to lend not to help a person but to lend for a commercial basis, and if the person wants to buy it, take that deal, so be it. So if I'm lending to a person and he's saying that I'm going to invest in such and such person, I'm an institution, I'm a bank, then this means I would be taking kind of an equity share in there.
Not necessarily equity share, I would not. It is somewhere in between. Yes, I would agree, kind of. That is right.